Hello, my friends. Theodore, astrologer here, and welcome back to the channel. So, today I want to explore with you a topic that I spoke about recently with a colleague of mine, and we were discussing how Saturn in Pisces is pretty much about 9 months ish away from completing its transit through Pisces. So we've been in this Saturn and Pisces cycle for over a year, going into year 2. I believe it was February or March 2023, around that time, when Saturn ingressed into Pisces, and that was a big moment. I remember in all of my astrological circles, and we were celebrating with joy the fact that Saturn was getting out of Aquarius, which was what pretty much triggered the COVID years. For some of you who may not have known, literally the very beginnings of the pandemic, Saturn ingressed into Aquarius. Okay, so the planet of restriction, of society and structure, in its home turf of Aquarius, which is from a collective standpoint, the sign of the collective, of humanitarianism, of globalism even. Aquarius is a very collective sign. A sign that also has a lot of signification around the interconnectedness of life. Aquarius is an air sign, which means it's unpredictable, but it's different in comparison to Gemini and Libra because Aquarius comes right after Capricorn, also ruled by Saturn. And when we move through the zodiacal wheel, when we get past Capricorn, we get into the sign right before Pisces, which is all about ultimate consciousness in a way. If we want to get spiritual, Pisces is the ultimate enlightenment energy where we even start to lose touch with what reality even is in some respects for Piscean energy, one aspect of it. But Aquarius comes right before that, in which we are envisioning or participating in an ideal collective structure of some kind, which is why Aquarius is associated with the 11th house, because the 11th house is about the way we come together as people. It is the interconnectedness of human beings. It is what creates a society. And when Saturn entered Aquarius, we had a pandemic, right? And Pluto also had a lot to do with that. Right before before Saturn entered Aquarius, Saturn went through Pluto and then came into Aquarius. And then we had all those wild years up until February, March. I think it was early March, Saturn ingressed into Pisces. Now, what has Saturn in Pisces meant? For each of us, we have our own individual story, I'm sure. We went and shifted from one house topic into another, obviously. One part of our life that was once restricted and kind of felt potentially stalled out became a little freer. We were able to maybe learn some lessons there. But Pisces is a whole different bag of tricks. Pisces is a place where we can dream away from reality if we want to. It's a place where a planet like Saturn that likes discipline, boundaries, structure, it likes to work slow, it likes to be a slow burn, it likes to get things in order to build something worthwhile. it likes to put you into the fire so you can gain something that could better your life, especially whatever house topic Saturn is occupying. Now, Saturn in Pisces obviously can go a billion different ways, just like all transits. You just don't know what is going on in one's life. So everyone's karma plays a massive role on how that transit will play out. So when we deal with any transit, we have to consider karma. But generally speaking, with Pisces and Saturn, we're dealing with a restriction on boundless freedom. We're dealing with a slowing down of creative endeavors or any sort of stretching of the imagination even. We are dissolving previous structures that were once in place. That's something I want to really talk about as the focus of today's video, is how structures and things that were once holding up a house can be slowly eroded and dissolved. And what is the result once a dissolving and an erosion takes place? Because we're seeing a dissolving and erosion of the world in a political sense. We're seeing a dissolving and erosion of people's trust in certain structures and institutions, right? So when we think about Saturn, we think of their ruling signs, Capricorn and Aquarius. And both of those signs are very, very tied into politics, how we structure and organize people, ideas and societies, really. Capricorn is the great builder. Capricorn is the serious one that needs to be the adult in the room in order to get things done. And Aquarius is the evolution of Capricorn, but a little bit more rebellious, inventive, original, inspirational, rebellious. I think I said that already, but Aquarius is what the ideal society could look like if Capricorn was able to dream a little bit more. So to me, Aquarian energy is very liberal and a Capricorn energy is very conservative. So if we really want to put a political analogy to two zodiac signs, I would say someone with a lot of Capricorn energy could be a little more conservative, depending if the right placements were in the right Capricornian aspects or conjunctions within Capricorn and within the right houses. It's very possible that's where a very conservative, narrowly focused mind can come in. Where Aquarius energy is definitely more, what can we do to progress the future? Very progressive, right? And they're very much tied in to those themes. And in our own individual lives, yeah, however that manifests, depending on the house, like if you had Aquarius in the 7th, that may have nothing to do with politics, obviously. It's just how your relationships might express themselves can be very Aquarian, could be very liberal, very freeing, very unique. And if there's one thing very, very conservative, maybe fundamentalist types won't enjoy, is anything unique and expressive and original even. Because conservative Capricorns like the way things are, you know. So in relationships, an Aquarian energy in relationships likes change, likes originality and inventiveness, which means that is very unique to you, and you may not see the world and relationships the way maybe normal people see them. But when it comes to Pisces and Saturn, guys, we're talking about Saturn losing all of its ability to stand on its own 2 feet. But at the same time, it could also, I believe when we get halfway through a Saturn and Pisces transit, we start to understand, okay, well, Saturn is taking a new evolutionary form here. It's not like, oh my God, Saturn is completely dead in the water. It is not completely destroyed and is unusable. Saturn is definitely weaker in Pisces. It definitely doesn't have the strict power, right? But it can allow us to transform what it means to be structured. It can transform, for this moment at least, while through its transit. What can we do while Saturn is in our version of wherever Pisces is in our birth chart, what could it do to help us structure something here that usually is a little bit too boundless and just free flowing all over the place or confusing? Like if someone is struggling with drug addiction and somehow that is affecting wherever Pisces is in your life in that part of your birth chart, let's just say there's just something going on with abuse there, or escapism, or someone who is just not taking their life seriously there. Whatever the case may be, a Saturn through Pisces transit can make it very difficult at first for them to come to terms with there needs to be a change here. There needs to be a transformation, a restructuring of one's confusing, chaotic life. Because Pisces can be very confusing and chaotic because there's no structure there. But Saturn may come in confused itself. But then over time, the fact that Saturn's even there can provide insight for transformation to get things in order. Right? So for our own individual lives, Saturn in Pisces probably has been expressing itself in so many different ways. If you have a story about your transit, leave it in the comments. I'd love to read it. Like for me, I, in a particular area of my life, got very artistic, where I was starting to create a lot more. I was inspired to create things and to take a part of my life that was really stagnant and to kind of have inspiration to work on certain things that provide me joy. And also, it gave me a lot of courage and discipline to even embark on YouTube here, right? One can say YouTube or any sort of video content creation and putting yourself out there is a very expressive thing to do. It's very artistic. You have to come up with ideas. You have to be creative in a way. And about halfway through this transit, I feel much more comfortable with the Piscean part of my life growing in a way. Because Saturn wants us to grow too. Because discipline ultimately leads to growth and maturity in a particular area of life. And as we age, we grow and mature in various different ways. So wherever Saturn is, there's usually a lesson of maturity and restructuring and discipline. And how do you want to move forward and build from here or not? Maybe sometimes in life, Saturn's lesson is to just stall you out. And then when this transit ends, then it's almost like, okay, now life can resume. Like I've met a lot of people lately with Saturn in the 7th, and they're not really in relationships, right? And all of them are like, well, when is it a good time to maybe go put myself out there? Or, I'm feeling very blocked in love. And I keep telling them, I said, I bet you when Saturn leaves here, it'll be easier. Like, I just feel like life will bring you more people or more situations where there will be people arriving, or just in the general field of what you're doing with your life. There could be new people entering. But for whatever reason in your life story, I would tell them, like, maybe Saturn is here to just say, you need to just focus on your own well-being. Like there's something going on in the way you associate with relationships that needs to be examined. And whatever that is, Saturn wants you to be restricted there for the time being. So maybe there's something you're avoiding or you're not dealing with. Maybe you're having a self-love issue because the 7th is across from the 1st, and the 1st is all about how we would view ourselves. And some people who have, confidence issues, that can have a lot to do with the 2nd house of self-worth. And, even though the 2nd house is about money too, but the 1st house is about how we would view ourselves as well, our identity. So maybe Saturn going opposite your 1st, especially if you have any placements there, there'll be a definite restriction on something with your identity and yourself. And there's a lesson there. So once Saturn moves on, that energy will free itself up. So But when we're dealing with Pisces, and this is where I want to maybe talk about the collective for a minute. The collective is going through a time where many countries around the world are being faced with challenges and opportunities to potentially restructure governments and the way things are being run. And Saturn can dissolve borders. Saturn in Pisces dissolves structures. It can dissolve parts of what Saturn stands for. And I think what we're seeing in many countries around the world are people are being faced with an opportunity to voice their opinion on changing things politically, even culturally. We've had many political movements rise over the last decade. A lot of intermingling of cultures that we're now at a crossroads in this globalization phase where some people are arguing that diversity is bad and ruins the culture of a country's identity. And then other people are like, well, no, it's inevitable that globalization must get stronger because there's no going back now. We have the internet, we have airfare, we can travel around the world in hours. And because of this, we have to learn to get along. We have to learn to integrate. We have to respect each other's cultures. We have to do things accordance with boundaries and borders, right? Let's talk about borders. Every country has got border issues, but everything's all wonky because some countries have let people in too fast over the years. Some people are not letting anyone in. We're having really big issues with people wanting to assimilate in a proper way, which is then messing with the culture of an original country, because now we're having certain cultures not respect other cultures, and it's now a giant mess. So Saturn in Pisces is really bringing all these issues to the forefront, right? We're dissolving borders. It's becoming a really big problem. And the structure of how countries and governments are operating are slowly being eroded, and their trust is being eroded. So this is a massive Saturn in Pisces example, coming at it from Saturn's dissolving. But the fact that Saturn can dissolve itself is part of the lesson of Saturn, right? So it's like this weird double meaning that any transit can really have. But when we're talking about Saturn in Pisces, we're talking about kind of like a paradox, because Saturn in Pisces is completely uncomfortable. It can't really build a structure there. It can't really grow something. It can only dream, right? It can only dream and create from a very spiritual, imaginative place, but it can't really physicalize just yet, which is why Saturn in Aries is going to be so big. And that's where the first conjunction with Neptune is going to be. So right now, from 18 degrees where Saturn is now, all the way through next year before it gets into Aries, Saturn's only going to be getting closer to Neptune, which is why so many of these issues and these political uprises and these elections, and this is why everything's getting even more tense right now. In one way, even though there's so much astrology that's making so many things so tense. But when we talk about Saturn and Pisces, maybe in our own lives, I feel a lot of us on an individual level are starting to figure out what Saturn and Pisces means. I think we're starting to envision and dream and a part of that part of our life, the Piscean part of our life. And we kind of know that we want change there. We kind of are dreaming and hoping that we can figure out a new way to structure something there. And that's the phase of Saturn and Pisces we're in. It's not about really building anything yet. It's about just awakening to the fact that we do need to rebuild or build something fresh and new. So in our own individual lives, like I'm learning, I had to learn how to completely restructure something in my life in order to grow in that particular area of my life, because the Pisces part of my life has always been very imaginative and dreamy and creative, and I always thought I had a little structure there, but now Saturn entered in and is now teaching me a lot more about structure. But it's not really like, yeah, I've been building in this area of my life, but not seeing the materialization of it just yet as much as I really feel it can materialize. And I feel like in the next year, even with my astrology business and stuff, I feel for the first time since coming online and doing creative things like making videos and content, like this is a very creative expression. I don't really feel like I'm going to, pop, if you will. Like I feel like the algorithms may really help me in a year from now, but I'm still in this building phase, building an audience here, building more clients via the internet and around the world. So Saturn in Pisces has been teaching me like, hey, you are putting in the work, you are creating vision, you have a dream for how you want to go about your astrology business, so to speak. And slowly, halfway through this transit, I'm seeing more and more people like my videos, more and more people booking consultations from around the world. My business, aside from just my local city area, is expanding its network, right? And this is all part of Saturn slowly helping me build a structure in something that's very, very not structured just yet. I mean, it is and it isn't. And something had to dissolve in my life prior to that in order for me to have the dream and the courage to, kind of pursue anything in the Piscean part of my life. And my Pisces house is very important involving a lot of the stuff I'm doing right now. But in the world, we're dealing with things dissolving more and more and more. More and more people talking about the vision of the future, the vision of America. We have 2 candidates in my country discussing 2 different visions of America, even though a lot of things really haven't been done in years that were really beneficial. And we're at a point where the political parties are so divided with the people, like the base, the people, the citizens that support one party or another. And if one side doesn't win, then it seems like it's going to be the end of the world. And even the other side, if they don't win, they're going to look at the opponent as the end of the world, right? So we already have this inevitable dissolving of structure, of government, of trust, of institutions, and more corruption is revealed all the time. And when Saturn gets closer and closer to Neptune, which is the ultimate Piscean energy, aside from Pisces itself, because Neptune rules Pisces, we're going to see this stuff get weirder and weirder and weirder. We're going to see things get more confusing, more delusion and misinformation. We're going to get more just not knowing what's up or what's down. On a collective level, I'm speaking now. And I believe when Saturn gets into Aries with Neptune, we're going to literally see massive actions get taken place. Massive action will take place to literally dissolve very, very well-known structures, institutions. So I think when Aries comes, right, when these planets hit Aries, we're talking about, okay, now the action happens. Okay, all this Piscean confusing, contemplating, thinking, dreaming, imagining what could happen. Like, what would happen if there was a civil war in the United States? What would happen if certain red states wanted to secede from the country and start their own countries, I guess? We would talk about a complete fracturing of a country. Or any other example involving structures, institutions, and this dissolving away, this structure being completely and utterly eroded, because Neptune can erode parts of Saturn. When they're together, there's an inevitable shapeshift, because the planet of structure, restriction, with the planet of boundless freedom and no restrictions, we're dealing with just a decay. We're dealing with transformation of some kind. We're dealing with again, I just feel like the best word to use is dissolving, you know? And Pisces is a dissolver in many ways. If you were to like translate Pisces to any sort of psychedelic experience, what would happen during a psychedelic experience? Your ego dissolves and you become one boundless consciousness, and you feel the boundless love, right? Isn't that what everybody says when you do psychedelics and stuff? There's like this opening, this portal opening into the mind of God, which is nothing but pure bliss. And that's what Pisces can do. That's what Neptune can do. So it's almost like Saturn has the potential to have a massive enlightenment, but at the same time, this enlightenment will inevitably destroy and dissolve things away. And there could be greater conflict, and there could be greater pushback, because we're going to be dealing with Aries. So there's going to be inevitable conflict with this dissolving. Now, in our own life, we don't know. This could be beautiful. This could be whatever's going on in the Aries part of your life. You're going to have that Saturn structure come in. You're going to have this dissolving Neptunian energy come in. And I think there could be a potential for a very, very big kind of awakening of some kind. And maybe it's going to have something linked into all the stuff going on in the world. Maybe whatever goes on in the world is really going to affect us all in a profound way. And Aries might be the moment for Saturn and Neptune where we really step into something unique for ourselves there. And I won't speculate on what that could be. In a reading, we can obviously talk about your life and where Aries is, and we can discuss some of those things. But yeah, guys, Saturn and Pisces, interesting time we've all been living in. For some of us, a lot of people I've spoken to, it's been actually pretty beneficial. A little confusing at first because it's like, oh my God, like I feel like I need to get my life together in this particular part of my life. And this Pisces part of my life has always been a little bit loosey-goosey and kind of fluid and just even a little confusing. You know, I just feel like the area where Pisces is in our life can be a confusing place, a place where maybe we don't necessarily feel grounded. I would always say wherever Pisces is in your birth chart, you probably don't feel grounded there. And Saturn wants to come in and ground you, but sometimes it just doesn't know how. And I feel we all get those intuitive pings during this Saturn and Pisces transits where it's like, okay, well, I want to get something in order here. I want to have structure and stability here, but everything that I do here needs to dissolve away first so I can then kind of rebuild in a positive way, hopefully. So that's really what a lot of people around the world want too for their countries. They know things are not working and they want to dissolve it. They want to get rid of it and they want to dream something new. And everyone has a different dream. Everyone has a different version of what could work the best. And we will only see the manifestations of what's going on in our life, of course, and the world when Aries comes. All right, my friends. Well, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you very soon.